Lockman for really out of my depth in the world of ballet. You may have noticed that, but I think it's interesting to have people on where I am really out of my depth and to learn a lot of stuff from the person. And obviously, I read her book and we talked about her academy and her time in Russia and all this kind of stuff was really fascinating. So I want to thank Monica for doing that. I hope I'm not as out of my depth this week. I've once or twice lifted a barbell, if that's any good. But our guest this week, he is officially the second strongest man in Ireland. He was also fourth in the UK Strongman this year, and his name is Cillein Groom. How are you doing, Cillein?
How are you going, Derek?
I'm very well, thanks for asking. Yeah, like I say, I have lifted a barbell now and again. It's a funny one, like because obviously I follow you on Instagram and I was looking at you doing deadlifts of 300 kg, 2 reps, and I was kind of thinking, wow, that's pretty impressive. And we will talk about that, Killing, because we're going to.
Yeah.
I want to talk about not just the UK strongman, but the fact of how you train and what way, whether you do chase PBs and stuff. But listen, we'll start from where we always do. Could you give us a short history of your upbringing, please?
So I grew up about maybe 5 miles outside of Ballina, which is a town in County Mayo, and I guess I was kind of lucky enough to kind of grow up before like Wi-Fi and iPads and iPhones, all that. So it was just kind of me and my brother. And I have an older sister as well, but mainly kind of me and my brother just kind of going out, just picking up rocks, just kind of
Yeah.
playing with whatever we found. Like so, yeah, I'm very grateful I actually got to grow up in the countryside, away from towns and cities, because I feel you get like a lot more kind of freedom
Mm.
to as a kid to kind of roam around the place.
I we've had the mixture of both, like with the guests, and there seems to be. You seem to have a really good approach for thinking you're glad you get to grow there, but a lot of people come on and they're like, well, they grew up in the city, they prefer if they grew up in the country, and then vice versa. And it's it's interesting. I've been lucky enough to kind of grow up in the town, but live outside the town. And you're right though, as well as just the idea of being out and about. It was the lack of iPads and internet
Yeah,
access that made it a bit better.
better. Yeah, you use your kind of imagination, and like a stick becomes a sword or a gun, or
Yeah,
the kind of things like that. Like so, it's yeah, definitely a lot more freedom, I think.
for sure. So we always ask this question too. When did you first become aware of mental health?
Um, I'd say probably kind of like from a young age, just
Mm.
because, like, I think for whatever reason, people have always been very comfortable, like, talk to me about like their problems and stuff. Even I know, like, from a kid, like being in school, and people just come up to me because they're upset and they be trying to tell me. And a lot of the times, like I was a kid, I couldn't really fully understand the full depth of like
Mm.
what they were saying. And then I guess kind of like growing up, I always just kind of like had an interest in just kind of like the human mind, and kind of slowly kind of started reading more into kind of like psychology, psychotherapy, things like that. And I guess like kind of through, I know he won't mind me talking about it, but like my dad's own personal experiences, just
Mm.
because when I was kind of like a teenager, he did struggle a lot with things that happened in his past. But he's gone on and he's like spoken openly in like radio and podcasts, and he set up like support groups, and like he's now a psychotherapist himself and kind of runs like his own page and everything. Like so, I think especially kind of like seeing my dad's kind of like, because my dad was always kind of like the big strong guy when I was
Mm.
a kid, like as most kind of people would see their dad, and then as a teenager, just kind of seeing like a little bit more kind of vulnerability, and then as time went on, then like him building himself back up. Like so, I think it did kind of teach me a lot about mental health and being okay with things, and it doesn't have to be everything doesn't have to be good all the time, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Like there are going to be like the down bits, but it's kind of more like how you react to those kind of situations, I guess.
Yeah, and we've spoken to people who mentioned that about there's good mental health and bad mental
Mm,
health, and we're
yeah.
going to have different. And it's interesting you say about like people were approaching it. It's obviously something within your character that they see, that you're an empathetic
Yeah.
person, and I
Yeah,
think
I mean, like even if I'm on the bus or something, somebody might just come up and just sit beside me. Then after a few minutes, I kind of know like their whole life story, and
yeah,
I don't know, I like I do enjoy it, just because I like I'm a big guy and I don't want to like
mm,
come across being like intimidating or imposing on people. Like, but yeah, just because I worked in healthcare as well for like 4 years. So like I worked like nursing homes, Galway Hospital, Sligo Hospital, and like kind of some psychiatric units. So
mm,
I think that kind of then just kind of just like furthered my own interests and I guess kind of like skills and learning how to like deal with people a bit better.
Yeah, that's brilliant. So what was the first sport that you played or got into?
I guess kind of the usual stuff. Playing soccer at school. I was never really any good at soccer. I have a condition called like the dyspraxia,
Yeah,
so it's kind of do with kind of like it's kind of a brain-based motor dysfunction. So just kind of hand-eye coordination can be quite off. Like and just the way you kind of your brain kind of processes things. So like soccer was I played, but like it doesn't mean I was good. And kind of same with like GA football. Like I love the sport, but cannot solo ball for the life of me. Then I started playing rugby when I was about 9, I think, and I think you just pick up a ball, you run straight at somebody. Like
mm,
so, it was a little bit easier for me that way. Like so, I played rugby for about like 10 years, and then I started lifting weights when I was like I say about 14. But I said like even like when I was a kid, like one of my favorite things to do was just go out and just find the biggest rock I could and just like pick it up various different ways and carry it around. So I guess I was kind of like always kind of meant to kind of go into strongman
yeah.
in the long run.
But then, like, speaking of dyspraxia, like, it does that affect what you do in any way?
With strongman,
Yeah.
no, because it's kind of like I find like the really heavy weights to kind of ground me, and it's like
Okay.
I find it much easier almost to kind of like because like before like I'm about 6'2", 140 kilos, and I mean anybody could kind of come over and nudge me, and I'd probably like fall over. Well,
Right.
for a good bit, like just because like the whole balance thing is quite off. So like I think that's why I like lifting weights so much because this kind of makes me feel like more like grounded to
Right.
to things like. But yeah, I feel like that's kind of it actually kind of works in my favor.
Yeah, that's interesting because
Yeah.
we did have someone on talking about now. It could have been episode 20s, it was that long ago, but
Mm,
we it was the first time I even heard of dyspraxia, to be honest with you.
yeah.
And it
Yeah.
was, we got to kind of figure out what it was. And I never thought of lifting weights or heavy objects as something that would ground you, but it makes an awful lot of
Yeah.
sense. When you started lifting, then you were about 14. Um, were you part of a gym, or was it more of a rudimentary kind of system?
Yeah, I never really kind of forget my first day in the gym. I went in and like again I was like 14 and I had no idea what I was doing. And I was really really nervous and I found this kind of like one quiet room in the gym and I was like, right, there's nobody here. Like I'll go in here do my thing. And then I was just it was grand like and the next thing like the door kind of slides open and there was this massive guy kind of standing there and he was just like, this is your first time in the gym, isn't it? And I was like, yeah, how'd you know? He was like, this is the girls' room. And then I look around and there's like pictures on the walls of all these like female models and stuff. And then he was just like, come on, I'll show you around. So he then, he just kind of like taught me the basics. And then after that, then was just kind of, I would just kind of go in to kind of do my own thing. I done a bit of powerlifting when I was like 16, 17. Didn't really enjoy it too much. It was too kind of stop starting. Like there wasn't as
Mm.
kind of much intensity for me. So yeah, it was just kind of that, just between like the rugby and powerlifting for a few years, and then when I was like 18, I'm not like for some reason I was just like I just kind of felt like I needed a break from just like training altogether. It was like just after my leaving cert, and like at the time, it was kind of I guess maybe like a blessing in disguise in some ways because it taught me a lot because at that point, I ended up putting on like a lot of weight, and I
Mm.
got like very, very overweight, and then just a lot of kind of like just bad habits kind of started in my life. And I think it was just because like I didn't have the structure of training, and especially like you have it with like dyspraxia, like you really need to have
Mhm.
structure in your life. Otherwise, you're just kind of like aimlessly just kind of go around just from thing to thing, and it's not going to really it's not going to do you much good. Like so, yeah. And then I started doing strongman when I was like 20 years old, I think. 20. It was after I went to the like first Ireland Strongest Woman, and like because my sister she was there. Like it was my sister, she started doing Strong Woman first, and
Oh,
then
okay.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And then it was like when I went to a show and I seen like these women like pulling trucks and like running with kegs and stuff. It was just like it just kind of sparked something in me. I was just like, right, if my sister can pull a truck, I can pull a truck, kind of thing. And it was like at the time I was just I wasn't living a very favorable life,
Mm.
in my opinion. I was just kind of, I was like 19, 20, just moved to Galway, like, doing like, I was doing a PLC at the time. And, yeah, I just kind of just maybe lost the road on myself a little bit, like just get too fond of having the crack.
Yeah.
You start doing things that like you shouldn't be doing, and even though you think you're going out having fun, you're actually kind of making yourself a little bit more depressed, I think, and
Mm.
you're just trying to like push things away. So I mainly just started Strongman just because like I wanted to like discipline myself. And then I done my first competition, and that's where I met my coach because he was the one running it.
Oh,
Then when that was during the summertime. Then when I came back to Galway in the September, but I went straight up to his gym, and I was just like, right, whatever you tell me to do, I'll do. And it's just kind of like developed into what it is now, I guess.
yeah. Can I talk about the structure idea? Because I
Yeah,
think I think a lot of people are either trying to find it or maybe can't quite get that structure. And I've spoken. I did a solo episode a few episodes ago about I have OCD, so
yeah,
I develop these structures. But what happens is they become a bit too rigid. So I went back to therapy to try and get it solved. Because to be honest, Gillian, it was like I had to be this at 11 o'clock. I had to do this. 12 o'clock. I had to do this. If it ran over, the whole day was ruined. But
mm.
I know obviously you're not talking about maybe that kind of extent, but the structure that you didn't have, um, what did you find with your structure? What way did you work out your training and your life from there?
Again, I think it was just kind of more. I just really needed discipline, and like again, I at the time I started like reading more into just more into kind of just like not exactly kind of like self-help books, but just kind of more just like looking into other people's like past experiences. Like
Mhm.
I know like some people might know like David Goggins or like Jordan Peterson, or Alan Watts as well. And it was just kind of more like I knew I just needed to do something that actually had purpose.
Mm.
And like considering like I was genuinely quite like desperate at the time just to like get things going because just waking up every day just with like kind of like fear and anxiety of like what was going to happen during the day. And it was just like if you're just kind of like sitting around not doing anything, that fear and anxiety just gets like worse and worse.
Yeah.
And it's not a case. It's like even like now when people look what I'm doing now and they're just like, oh, you're doing so well and all this has come so easy. And it's just like I was never always like this person, like. And um it's not something that's just going to like happen overnight.
Yeah.
It's like it's going to like, and I think that's really the big thing that people like don't understand. It's just like it's not just like one day you're just going to like figure everything out, like. Because like even though now like 5 years later, like if you told me like 5 years ago like I'd be where I am now, I wouldn't believe you. But at the same time, like I'm still like I don't have everything figured out, like.
Mhm.
And it's more about just like you're just constantly just like adding a little bit more and more. And it's like I feel like you're not really gonna notice it until you actually look back. Because like I've kept a diary for like the last, I say maybe like 6 7 years, like. And even it's just like I don't realize until I actually look back on it, and I was just like, wow, like I was actually like I was such a mess back then, like.
Mm.
But now like sometimes I kind of even think in my head I'm still that same person, but it's not until you actually take some time to reflect, like over the years, that you can actually see the progress of it.
Yeah, and another, but I don't know about you, but when you have like a training regime or it's something
Yeah,
that you do and it's there maybe maybe 5 days a week or whatever, um motivation, I think people lack or struggle with motivation, and I get that on certain days,
yeah,
when I'm really trying. But I try to what I try to do now is, if I'm struggling with motivation, I try to see, and it's not easy if I had to work on it, but try to see the end of the day and what I did during the day will help me to get to that end of the day. And like it took me, it sounds like an easy kind of concept or
yeah,
idea, but it takes a bit of work, doesn't it?
yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, it takes a lot of it's a lot of patience, really,
Mm.
like. Because I mean, like, especially I feel like if you start to think too far ahead of things,
Yeah.
sometimes, like, depending on like your state of mind, if you're anxious and you start looking too far ahead, like you kind of start everything kind of starts piling on
Mm.
top of you, like. So, um, well, I guess kind of like for me, with like motivation, when I first started off, again, I feel like I was really just so just desperate for like I knew this, like there was so something in my soul telling me that like I needed to like change, like. Because like I was kind of more thinking in the long run that like if I don't like start fixing myself now, that like I didn't want to be in a situation where like if I was ever lucky enough to have a family, that I wouldn't be able to
Mm.
like provide for them, or just to be like functioning for them. So like that was kind of one thing that I was always kind of like kept in the back of my mind, like. And I think just from the things I experienced growing up, I've just like I'm really kind of willing to do anything to kind of like get myself there regardless. And like, there are days where like I'm going to the gym and I really just like I'm not feeling or all that. Like, but I feel like the days where like you don't feel like doing it and you still do it are the days that like you really kind of like you kind of gain more from yourself, because then you
Yeah,
actually like realize you're capable, and you're just it's more about like breaking down those walls in front of you that like you know you can actually do it, like, and again it is hard, like, but I feel like it's doing like small little habits
mm.
like over time can actually build up into like bigger ones. Because one thing I like doing as well is just like cold water therapy. So
Mm.
it's like going down to like Salt Hill, especially in the winter time, and just jumping off the diving boards and just it's just actually the fact that you're willing to make yourself do something like that. So then when you go to do other things, it's all right. This is nowhere near as bad, like, so.
It's true.
Yeah.
Um, Killian, what do you know? What's actually? I'm just going to read an ad now in a second, but you know
Yeah.
what's I find incredible is that like you figured, or started to work on this when you were 18, and like it took me till I was 26, and it will take people maybe even until they're older to kind of do that kind of
Mm.
stuff, and to be aware of it. And you're 18 is pretty impressive. Allow me to just before I wreck the place, just read out this advert, and we'll get back to it.
Yeah.
Okay. Fusion Training Center, Monksland, Athlone, a place to train in Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, kickboxing, martial arts, and CrossFit. A great atmosphere with experienced coaches and a real sense of community. If you want to join the team, find us on Facebook at Fusion Training Center or drop in for a chat. Fusion Training Center, train like a warrior. I keep kicking the table somehow. Um, but yeah, just wanted to also say the women's
Yeah.
classes in the jiu-jitsu are flying at the moment. Everybody's great in there. They keep coming. So if anybody is interested, coming in and learning some self-defense and jiu-jitsu, the fact that I'm the coach shouldn't put you off. I'd understand if it does. Anyway, but it's there, so you all know. But listen, Killian, have you always been a competitive person?
Um. Yeah. I guess like whenever it comes to kind of just, I think it was just kind of between me, my brother, and my sister. We were always like very competitive people, like, and I kind of feel like, especially with like my family in general, there's always this kind of like competitive playfulness, even when we were
Mm.
kids. So it's like, again, like I really struggled in school just because like I wasn't diagnosed with dyspraxia until I was like 17. So it was like the teachers could never really like understand why like I wasn't performing as well, or couldn't understand things. So I think that's kind of why more I took to kind of like sports, was because it was just like if it was something that I was good at, and like when you're doing something that you're good at, like it makes you feel kind of like better about yourself. Like, but I said like it was between the ages of like 18 and like 20, there really wasn't kind of much motivation kind of
Mm.
like within myself, and it was like I felt like genuinely kind of just like hopeless about like a lot of things. I think that's kind of why like I let myself go, but like letting myself go so low kind of just made me want to like go so like high, if that
Mm.
makes sense.
Yeah.
Like just because like it did get like I guess pretty dark between the ages of like 19 and 20 in particular, like and I think it was just like having those kind of experiences, like I that's the kind of things I think about when I kind of going into the gym. It's just like
Mm.
like that's kind of like what I'm working away from, like, but also it's like I have the idea of like what things used to be like, but then I've also got like the idea of where I want to go.
Yeah.
So it's like you've got like a push and a pull, instead of just like, 'cause I feel like if you got like just a pull or a push, it can only bring you so far. But if you can like clearly outline what you don't want your life to look like, and then clearly outline what you do want your life to look like, then you can resort to kind of either or then to kind of motivate you.
Yeah, and it's also like it's also about taking, and I know it sounds like a simple thing, but taking the positives from something that's really negative. Because
Yeah,
when I
100%.
was like, I was the same as yourself, and I had really, really dark places. And it's not just that I'm trying to run away from it and forget about it and stuff, because it's important to remember that,
Yeah.
to, like you said, keeping your diaries and to see how far you've
Mhm.
come. So taking those positives away from it, and like it's pretty amazing that you found yourself in this place 5 6 years ago, and where you are now is quite a transformation. And
Yeah.
um when you first did, like, you mentioned you met your coach on your first strongman
Yeah.
competition. What do you remember of that first competition?
So feeling incredibly nervous
Yeah.
and scared, to be honest with you, like, because again, I've never really been I was never really like a confident person, and I never really kind of like, although I was competitive, I just never really like I always kind of put myself down and everything. It was just like, like, you're no good for this kind of stuff. But like, I was still willing to kind of just try regardless. And like my first competition, I think there was like 8 people in my group and I came third. So I think then, like, just like, when I got that like small little trophy, like I was just like, damn, that felt good. Like, and then, well, even still, like, I never really, when I started, like, I didn't even have the intentions of like going professional. Like at the time, I was like, I was working in the hospital, and I actually wanted to go in to do like psychiatric nursing.
Right.
That was kind of like my main thought. But then it was about maybe it was like when I first got invited to compete at Ireland Strongest Man, and I was like, I think I was like 21, and I was like, I've been like the youngest one competing at Ireland Strongest Man like every year since, and
Really.
yeah, like first time there, and it was just like, like these guys were a lot older than me, but I was there on like 4 weeks notice, and I was just like, right, I knew there wasn't much between me and them. And then it was after that day I was just like, no, like this is what I'm going for. Like, like if I can get this far now, if I actually like fully committed myself to it, like then, like who knows what could happen.
I remember when I was growing up, a little bit older. We'll say a little bit older than you, Gillian, and on terrestrial television, the strongman events were massive,
Yeah,
and there was household names, and it was to me they were like otherworldly, the people who were taking part in it, because
yeah,
it didn't make sense to me that this giant stone was going to be picked up and then he was going to do it at 5 times and they
yeah.
covered in chalk and all this kind of stuff was kind of out there. Where did you, like, obviously you saw your sister doing it, but had you
Mm.
seen it before on YouTube or anything like that?
Yeah, like my very first like memory of like seeing Strongman was like I believe it was like the 2008 World Strongest Man,
Mm.
and Terry Holland's pulling a plane, like to see somebody like pull a goddamn plane was just like mind-boggling. Like that, I think that was like I can always kind of, I was very young when I seen that like video, and randomly that kind of that image would always kind of come to my mind of like a man pulling the plane, like,
Yeah,
and then it was just like, again, like it's just incredible to think that somebody could do that, like, and I think that's why like I really like enjoy the sport, because it's just like say like with powerlifting, you just got like squat, bench, deadlift, and that's all you ever train. But like with
yeah,
strongman, it's just like you never know what they're going to give you. Like every competition is completely different, and like who like they could just make up an event that like nobody has ever done, and you've just got to do it. Like, and I think
yeah.
that's what I love about it, because you got to constantly like adapt your body to whatever is like the competition is going to be. And like I remember like in 2021 Ireland's Strongest Man, um one of the events was a car roll. So it was
Mm.
like a car, and then there was like a bar at the bottom of it. And you have to run, flip the car all the way over, do like full 360, and then flip it back over, and then whoever done it in the quickest time. Like, so it's just, getting to do stuff like that. Like, it's a lot of fun. Like, yeah, yeah, it
Yeah.
really is a lot of fun.
I like the way there's some maniac making these things up as he goes
Yeah,
along, but there was another one with the with the sandbag, the large sandbags, and
yeah,
we have one of those in the gym, and I can't really remember. I think it's between 60 and 70 kg. I'm not really quite
yeah,
sure, but trying to pick it up is like 60 and 70. Like, you do that with a barbell, right? Fair enough, but trying to
yeah,
pick that up because of just the shift in weights and stuff,
yeah,
and the that to me is just irritating more than anything else, because you know what I mean, though, because it's
yeah,
like
yeah,
you said, if you were just doing barbell and you were doing deadlifts or whatever, that's one thing, but having to figure out to lift it this way because the weight
yeah,
is falling that way, all that kind of stuff is so random, and I think that's what made it such a brilliant, and what makes it such a brilliant thing to watch,
yeah.
because of the random kind of event of it.
Events,
And
yeah.
another thing, the characters, there's always seem to be really great characters who are involved in it.
Yeah, yeah. Since you said that now, actually, like one thing I really admire about the sport is the fact that, like, say, like I was over competing for UK Strongest Man during the summer, and the physios that were there, like all of us, we were all in the change room together, and the physios, like, were just saying like how, like, because they've never worked with the strongman show before, and they
Mm,
just said it's so bizarre because they thought everybody would be going around like puffing their chest out, ignoring people, and like everyone's just there just having a crack, giving each
mm,
other sweets, kind of helping each other out and stuff, and it's just like you're never really going to go into a sport where like you're friends with your opponents.
mm.
Like everybody is genuinely friendly and kind to each other. Like there's no there's very little arrogance really,
Mm.
like, and I think that's because I think it's just because like it could be quite a lonely sport, like, and the training, like, it's brutal really, like, 'cause you could be like 16 weeks, like I was 16 weeks training for UK's alone, like, and um like, I think it's like when you get there, it's just like, you respect the other person
Mm.
because like how damn hard it is to actually do it, like, and it's not like a sport where like like, let's say like you could say a boxer is the only thing, but like look how much money boxers are getting
Mm.
for like what they're getting paid. Like a strongman, it is getting better, the prize money, like it is developing like a huge amount. But yeah, like the characters is definitely one thing because you might like kind of like roar and shout at the crowd, but like they're saying like there's no bad blood between people.
Yeah. You mentioned training there, and that's another thing that will probably interest a lot of people. That how does, because you mentioned the different types of events that they can just throw at you.
Yeah.
Like, how do you train for it?
So like let's say like your training sessions, like, let's say like on a press day, like let's say in a competition, you might have like your axle press might be coming up for reps. So you do like you practice the axle, the overhead stuff first, and then you do your accessories. But then let's say like on a squat day, like do the squats, do your accessories, and after that, then you might be doing like say if there's like a truck pull or like a tire flip. So it's like on your like squat and deadlift days, it's like usually you're training your vents towards the end of the session when you're really fatigued,
Right.
just so like you just to kind of like make it a little bit easier. Like so, it's kind of like you do almost like a kind of like a full powerlifting session, and then you go do a few strongman events afterwards. Like that's kind of like a best way to kind of explain it. Like, but like well, like it is a lot of work. Like I mean, you could be in the gym anywhere between like 3 to 4, maybe like 5 hours, like depending on
Mm.
like the things you got to do, like, and that's just like between like like taking rests and um obviously then like just setting up the equipment is definitely like
Yeah.
most the hardest bit of it all. Like, but like I am very lucky that I train with a group of people down in like my gym's GSP gym, and then we have the
Mm.
Galway Powerlifting Strongman Club. So there's roughly between like 12, 15 people who between like powerlifting, strongman woman, we all just train together. Like everyone's extremely competitive, and it's a really really great environment because like you're not like there training with like the general public, and it's like nothing bad, but like you do like
Mm.
something you see in the gym, and you're like there's people on their phones and like
Yeah. Yeah.
there's no intensity and all that, but so it's just like we're all there because like we all like want to be the best, and being around that environment like really kind of like pushes it, because again when you're just you competing out there, like it's nice to do a training where you can like rely on other people to kind of like help you out with things and all that, like because like if you like let's say you got to do like a yoke, like training with yoke, and you got to take like if I have to take up 380 kilo outside on a
Mm.
like a little weedy thing, like it helps when you got other people, so we all like we're all there for each other, like.
And there's a huge responsibility on yourself and the coach as well to know when to stop, and when to take your rests, and like
Yeah,
how does the rest days go? Do you get any?
yeah, like everyone thinks they're like, oh, you must be training every day. I'm like,
Mm.
I train 4 days a week. That's
Yeah.
it. Like, and I really don't believe anybody should train in the gym more than 4 days a week.
Yeah.
Like, on the other days, like hiking, swimming, cycling, all that. That's fair game. Like, but like just not like actual like muscle breakdown. But I'm very lucky. I got one of like the best strongman coaches in the country, and like when uh I think like what really kind of like, he won't mind me saying this, what makes him so good is because like he made so many mistakes when he was my age,
Mm.
like, and he was just kind of more just like that old school mentality of just like push it really really hard all the time, and then you just got like injury after injury, and like you can't really like train really that heavy anymore, compete. So it's just like he's learned so much from like his own experiences, and I think that that's why like when I started like training with him, he was like always very like cautious about like not to push me
Mm.
too far, because especially like with strongman or like any strength sport, what happens, you see like a lot of young people, they get really really strong, but it's just like their bodies like aren't strong enough to actually kind of like withstand it,
Yeah.
and then like fair enough, they may be like really really good, but then a few years like and like they're just completely like mashed up, like, so
Yeah.
knowing when to pull back is definitely important. Like if I go in the gym and my coach sees that like I'm not like 100%, or like might be injured or something, like he will change things around and all that. Like so again, it's helpful that I'm there with them and all that, and that's kind of the
Mm.
main reason why like I've decided to stay in Galway, was because like my coach is here and everything. So it's just it's easier to kind of like, he can see like how I'm moving with things and all that, like, so like it makes a big difference.
Yeah, it's not like a coaching session or coaching sessions over the internet or anything like that. Where to be able
Yeah,
to see it obviously makes it a lot more. I
huge
think,
difference.
yeah, I think. But another thing that people will be definitely interested in is the food and how you how
Yeah.
your diet is. Like, I'm sure it's pretty extreme.
Yeah, so it's kind of like, I kind of, it changes to like my training.
Mm,
So usually like at the start of the season or the start of a training cycle, I'm probably eating only about maybe like 3,000 calories.
right.
But then like coming towards the end of the training cycle, it goes up to about 5,000 calories. Just because like I would be very sensitive to putting on weight.
Yeah.
Like even like up until I was like 19, I was exactly the same age as I was weight in stone. So when I was 12, I was 12 stone. When I was 15, I was
Right.
15 stone. I was 17 stone. And when I hit 19 stone, then I started to lose the weight and like work my way back up. But um yeah, I guess I'm lucky. I've always had a big appetite. I got a pretty good nutritionist as well,
Right.
and he really helps me out a lot. Like, it's definitely kind of helped tidy things up a bit. But yeah, it's not as like, people like kind of just make the assumption that I'm eating like 10,000 calories a
Yeah.
day, and like, fair enough. If you look at like Thor Bjorson, he's 6'9". When he was doing
Mm,
strongman, like, he was eating about 10,000, but like the man's 6'9", like
yeah.
he needs it. Like, and the big problem I see with a lot of people when they start off is they start eating like 7, 8,000 calories, and then they kind of go from maybe being 100 kilos to 135 kilos, but
Mm,
they're not even that strong. So it's just like, more about like, knowing when to kind of push
yeah.
things. Like, again, patience is like the biggest thing with this, like, because with strength sports, you don't hit your best until your mid 30s. So it's just like I work in a health store in town, Health
Mm,
Plus, and I get young lads coming in, and it's just like, and I understand, because I was there myself when I was a teenager, like, but it's just like, just think more in the long term, like,
mm.
because like, if you're genuinely serious about fitness, this is something you're going to do for the rest of your life. So don't be in a rush to kind of get the ideal like body you want, or like whatever it is, like, because like it will come in time, but you just gotta be patient and trust the process.
Yeah, like there is this rush. Maybe not fully fueled by social media and stuff, but it has a part to play where everybody wants to be
Definitely.
look a certain way, and they
Yeah.
do think, and I'm sure you've seen and heard it, that this is just going to take a year and I'll be exactly how I want to be, and it obviously
Yeah.
these things take time.
A lot of time, or people think they can get to the weight, or they get whatever they want, and they can just stop. And I'm just like,
Yeah,
no, like, it's not like, it's not that easy. Like, but like, if the way I see it is like, if this is something you truly want to do, it's probably like one of the best decisions you'll ever make in your life,
Mm,
because like, you'll learn so much more like about yourself and like what you're actually capable of. Because like, I said, like, I was very like very shy and insecure person. Like, I like, back, I wouldn't be able to kind of like, I used to like avoid talking to people for the most part, just because I used to like stutter and stammer a lot and things. So like, just like, committing yourself to your body, like, it's more than just training your body. Like you're training like who you are as a person in the long run. Like, and I feel like I see like a lot of people who aren't into fitness,
mm.
they kind of just see like fitness as being like pure vanity, and like, this guy's just like a meathead or something like that. Like, but it's just like, it's so far from like what it actually is like. And I feel like that's what stops a lot of people from actually
Yeah,
making the decision to get themselves fit, because like, they feel like it's just like, you've got to be like a certain kind of person, or they feel like, oh, like I'm just not able to kind of like do that. Like,
yeah.
um
People love a stereotype, don't they?
yeah,
Just
yeah, yeah,
they love it.
yeah. Because I mean, like, even like with my training group, I explain to people, everyone's thinking, oh, this must be like a lot of big, giant, aggressive people
Mm,
all throwing weights around. But like, you go in, and like, everybody is like the nicest people I've
yeah,
ever met, and like, most of us we're all just like nerdy people. Like, we're just like, it's very much kind of like, a bunch of misfits, I guess. Like, but
yeah,
yeah, I mean, it's very much like, no one's ever gonna like. I don't think it's like, I see people that, like, they don't want to go to gym because they feel like they're gonna be judged. And like, anybody who's actually like, whenever I see somebody who's starting off the gym first, it motivates me, because I'm just like, I know how hard that is to make that
yeah,
decision to go
yeah,
into the gym, and to like, actually just want to make a change yourself. So like, if anyone's listening, like, don't like feel like you're going to get judged or laughed at.
mm,
And if anybody does judge or laugh at you, well, then like, they're a terrible person, and like, you
yeah.
don't need their validation. Like, so, like, don't let that hold you back. Like,
Absolutely, and we would describe ourselves in jiu-jitsu as a group of misfits as well,
Yeah,
kind of nerdy people, and it's the same. It's the exact same idea of when I went in there. I just had no idea what to expect, but it couldn't be nicer people in there, and
yeah.
we got on so well, and it was a really welcoming environment. Can I ask you actually, just because
Mm,
this is something that people may not know about, and we've talked about dyspraxia, but you said you were diagnosed at 17, and what
yeah.
what was the what were the steps leading up to the diagnosis?
Um, I'd say it was kind of more so. I think it was like my English teacher. I had in secondary school. He was such a I loved his classes. Like English was always like my favorite subject. Like, but it was just I think he just slowly like over the years was just kind of picking up on more and more things like just like my like say like my handwriting. If I wrote an A4 page, you'd almost think that like four different people wrote on it because my handwriting kept
Okay.
changing, shifting and things. And again, just like grammar or just like he could understand like what I was trying to like say or write, but like it wasn't coming out properly.
Right.
And again, I think it was just because this like whatever it is, just like I can understand things in my head like quite well, but then just like to actually kind of put them into words or it's like write them was it's just it takes me just like a little bit more like extra effort. Like I'd like to have
Mm.
to proper like concentrate on it. And yeah, then he just kind of like just said it to my mum because like, at first they thought it was just like dyslexia, like but I went to a psychologist about that, and she said like she didn't think it was dyslexia, but it was like more so dyspraxia. And then
Mm.
I went and asked to do like dyspraxia tests, which I failed miserably because it was just like you'd have to pick up these little like pins with one hand, flip them and put them back in, and just
Oh.
like there was a lot of like kind of like just like dexterity tests. And then she was just kind of just asked me just general questions about just like my own cognition and things like that. Like, and then it was kind of like the more I remember like to be honest, like when she told me when I found out I actually had dyspraxia, she was just like basically all I was told was I was never going to be able to do this, that, or the other, and
Right.
that was all I was ever told. There was never anything about like how to actually like deal with it. It was just I was just more like told these limitations I had, and like I think that's what really kind of like kickstarted like the whole thing of like me going into like a bad place because I was just thought like right I have this so like I'm never going to be able to actually
Mm.
do anything proper because of like what I have. Um, but then again, obviously then started doing strongman. Then I started like actually like learning about like dyspraxia and like trying to like find out other people's experiences with it, like, and then just like more just learning how because I was just like I always struggled in school, but I was just like, right, if that doesn't mean like I can't learn, I've just got to
Mm.
figure out a way that like works best for me. So I think that's why I just started like just reading books more, and like fair enough, like it might take me like longer to read a book, but it was just more like I like I just needed to figure because it was just kind of more like I just didn't want to like be limited by that.
Mm.
Like I just kind of wanted to figure out like my own way of going things because I feel like regardless of what like if you got like dyspraxia, dyslexia, autism, anything like that, like just because you have those things, just don't like think that you're going to be like confined by
Mm.
it. Like there's always you've just got to figure out what way works best for you. Like because a lot of those things they don't really affect your intelligence; they just affect the way you got to like process things. Like
Absolutely. And you mentioned to me about and you said about wanting to become a psychotherapist.
yeah.
That's what you hope to do. Why a psychotherapist?
Um. Well, I guess because I just really like helping people, and
Yeah.
like I want to do the psychiatric nursing. And it was a big decision to kind of like choose to do strongman over psychiatric nursing. Like and then I think what really got me pushed me more towards psychotherapy was because like from let's say what I was just saying there, like with psychology, like I'm not speaking like against like psychology because it is useful in a
Hmm.
lot of ways, but like let's say with them it's just like right you have this condition so therefore you're confined within this box and like it's almost like you can't leave that box and like same with like people who might have like a borderline personality disorder. It's like you're putting a definition on the person and then like not explaining to them that you could actually just figure out your own way. And then I started reading a book by Carl Rogers called Becoming a Human, and there's a really good example of it where they were talking about patients with schizophrenia, and they were talking about when they were working with like psychiatrists, they felt like that they were like an inanimate object and the psychiatrist was the doctor, and there was a distance between it. But then when they were like comparing, like with psychotherapy, it's more like you are like creating an environment where you fully accept the person for who they are, like completely and utterly with no judgment. So you're given this environment where they can feel comfortable looking at themselves, and therefore like figuring out like what it is like kind of like is going wrong, or like what works best for them, and like yeah, again just figuring out like within themselves. And it's kind of it's more like client-based therapy where like the client would like lead the direction, and you're just kind of this like a mediator. Like they'd kind of like they may ramble for an hour, and then you kind of just like kind of reiterate back to them what it is that they're trying to say, and you're both kind of figuring it out with like without any, there's more of a humanistic side to it.
Yeah.
And again, like obviously with like psychology, psychiatry, that it is needed for like certain things and all that, like, but I feel like just for like for most people, like it's psychotherapy will be, it's very much a beneficial tool. And again, you don't have to be like completely like depressed or like anxious to go to therapy. It could be more just like if you just want to have a constructive conversation about your life to figure out like a way to go forward, like instead of just like what I did as a teenager and just like get trapped in myself and just like you know things are kind of going over and over again in your head, and you're not really kind of getting anywhere, like. But actually being able to sit down and have a constructive conversation with somebody about like what's actually going on. And I think it's just because the reason why I want to do it, because I know how easy it is to like let life kind of like club you down and just be like just kind of just stay stationary. And like I know how hard it is to kind of get out of that situation. Like, and one thing I always kind of think in my head, if I can go from who I was to like my end goal of like going to world's strongest man, like if I can do that, I genuinely believe anybody can do anything, because like I really didn't believe I was capable of doing much.
Yeah.
So like if I can, like, even from what I've done now, like I know like if I can achieve this, what I've already done, like everybody else can do so much better. Like, and I think that's the kind of more like as well, like I'm not doing strongman just for me. It's more just to kind of like prove a point to people that like you don't have to be confident to achieve things.
Yeah, like I've been very fortunate on this podcast to have people on, like psychiatrists, psychologists, all these, psychotherapists and stuff. And for me to learn about them, because I had been down the psychologist route, and I hadn't been down a lot of the therapists, psychotherapy
Yeah,
and art therapy and all the therapists I've had on. And what you said there about like what I found now, and I've told people I'm going to therapy again over the last few weeks. I've been going, and uh, because it's a positive thing. It wasn't
yeah,
because I was feeling, like you said, you don't have to be feeling really down. And it was such a weird experience to go in, because having been through the other system, I was going in here and I was talking, and I was thinking to myself, am I talking too much? But like that was literally why I'm there. And
yeah, yeah,
facilitator is a great word for it, because Kenneth is the other side of the room, and he just kind of says, well, maybe you're thinking like this because of such and such, or and it's just these little ways of just turning maybe my mindset this way to think, oh, maybe I was overthinking, or maybe
yeah,
something. And I find it like I find it fascinating that now, like what I'm in, the therapy I'm in now is like that. And that's, I wouldn't have known about psychotherapy if I didn't start this podcast, for instance. Well, I wouldn't have known yet. I
oh,
would made
yeah,
that. Yeah, it's one of those
yeah,
things. Do you like, I know you mentioned about your dad as well, like psychotherapist and stuff. And you mentioned about like your, when you first became aware of mental health, obviously there was a good, healthy kind of relationship and discussion about those kind of things within your household and stuff. Has that helped with your mindset, do you think?
um, yeah. I guess kind of being thrown in the deep end of things, like especially because I when it was kind of mainly like like the recession started, and at the time like my sister was going to college, and like my parents, they done as much, they done the best they could with the situation that they're in. Like cannot fault them. Like, but like it was a very very difficult situation. And then like my dad's mental health, because he came out about his like being abused as a child. And I was like, I think it was like maybe like 15, 14, 15, like when I found it out, like. And at the time I feel like I kind of just like pushed that down because I was just like, right, this is a very serious situation, so like we've got to like kind of stay as composed as possible, like especially as like, yeah, I have my younger brother as well, like, and I just kind of wanted to try and like be there for like my parents because like I could see that like what was going on was like it was affecting them, like, so um I guess I just kind of just immediately just like, I was like, right, I was just kind of just, you got to accept it and kind of get on with it, like, but I guess at the same time I probably didn't like handle it. It was probably, years later, then it was just kind of more, once this kind of situation had kind of like maybe settled down a little bit, that it kind of like came out inside of me, like, but yeah, I feel like definitely like my dad being quite open, because again, I said like everyone always kind of like, you see your dad as being like, like the big strong guy, and like, seeing him being like very vulnerable, and he, it was like, again, it's never always like a straight uphill, like, because he had his own difficulties and all that, like, then he went back working a job, had a good job, and then he just had a like another mental breakdown, and then he was lucky enough with his job, he was able to go um to St. Pat's in Dublin, and I think, like him going through having all those experiences of going through like the mental health system in Ireland as well, like I think that's what really kind of pushed him to go out and help there, because like in this country, like I don't really believe that like many people in the government really kind of care much about mental health, because it is seriously so poor in the country, like, and it's an area like in the budget that always gets less and less funding over the years, like, and like I suppose it is changing. It's definitely not as like swept under the rug as it used to be. But I think, just like hearing like my dad talk about it like on the radio, and him setting up the support group, and like seeing him helping other people, I was just like, you can actually turn a negative thing into a positive thing, like if that's what you choose to do,
Yeah.
really, like, and I think it's about, really kind of making that decision, as hard as it is, that's what makes the difference.
Um, this is probably a silly question, but what's the ambition for the strongest man thing? Is it worlds? Because it's interesting. Someone said to me the other day. I told them you were coming on, and they said, "Oh, yeah, yeah." They asked me who the first number one is in Strongest Man, and I
Mm,
said, I do know the name, but I can't remember. Okay, I did say that I was
yeah.
being honest about it, but I said I want to interview the second.
Mm,
Well, first of all, I heard you on a podcast, but
yeah.
apart from that, that's your next step is to be number one. Like there's
Yeah.
always the next step. But is it to be world's strongest man? That's the ultimate goal.
Yeah. 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 I mean, like, I wouldn't really be like committing this much myself. I didn't want to go like all the way, like,
Yeah.
because it's, again, like, it's a brutal sport. Like the last few years, like I missed out on so much, like, family, friends, doing all the things. It's just kind of very much been like tunnel vision, like go to
Mm.
gym, work, eat, recover, sleep, all that kind of stuff. Like, but yeah, I mean, I just want to, while I'm alive, young and fit, I just want to push myself as far as I can, like, because I know if I don't, I'm going to look back and I'm going to regret it, and I
Mhm.
don't want to live with that regret inside my body. Like, I want to be able to just be like, right, I done everything I could, and yeah, I mean, like, just to go, because I like, I said, you don't hit your best until like your mid 30s,
Yeah.
and like, like I'm still 25 now. I got a good coach, so like I'll like I'm willing to, like, I'm going to commit everything to it, like, to kind of get myself there, like.
That's what is kind of crazy as well, because from my, memory of seeing the world's strongest man competitions, they were all in their 30s, and some of them
Mm.
may have been in the 40s, and you're quite young to be competing in it. What's the next event then?
Um, at the next competition, the last one I'm doing for this year is, there's like a world record breaker day up in
Right.
Derry, Matt McKeegan's gym. So I'm just gonna go for deadlifts. I know the Irish record is like 440 kilos. I've genuinely no idea what my max deadlift is, so I want to try and get as close to like 440 as I can, like that would be pretty good, because like fellas Ireland's strongest man now, I think his max deadlift in competition is like 400. So
Right.
like I know if I can beat him, like like if I get higher, he won't be there. But if I pull a little higher than him, like it'd just be get my, because I came second 2 years in a row, so I was like a little bit disappointed in myself this year. Um, but yeah, then after that, then I'm going to take eight, 10 weeks just to kind of let my body recover, because I've been flat out for about maybe 7 or 8 months now. And then kind of get myself focused on the next year's season.
So I'm going. We always ask our guests this question too. What do you like to do in your spare time, if you do, in fact, have any?
Um, my spare time, I like to be spending as much time as I can outside.
Hmm.
Like I love like hiking is like just I love it so much. Like just going out there because I feel like rural Ireland is such a beautiful place. Like and like I just love kind of just going out in the wilderness and maybe like you come across like a few kind of old abandoned houses and
Mm.
things like that. I like to take some time just to actually like I do a lot of cooking and eating, but I like to actually because obviously what I'm doing, but I like to just cook proper food. I was very lucky that like my dad's like and my aunts were like chefs at one point. So ever
Right.
since I was a kid, they taught me how to cook proper food. And my family used to run an Italian restaurant, so I do enjoy just setting like a few hours aside and just have some friends over, cook some food and that. Then reading, I always try to like to kind of keep myself in touch with reading a book. And then with that, then like just going down to Black Rock. I just like just kind of keep the body moving, just doing yoga, stretch and mobility work. Then just kind of just like working on like my own little things, I guess.
I started stretching just this week gone. Just I'd say it was
Mm.
about 4 or 5 days ago. Because I'm like, look, I'm 40 years of age. A lot of the younger lads in jiu-jitsu are a lot more flexible and can move better than I can, a lot quicker than I can. So I thought, really, I really need to start. Like, I should have done it when I
Mm.
started jiu-jitsu, but look, I didn't. But I think I was chatting to one of the lads in training about this, and I think it's because like it's quite a boring thing, right? But
Mm.
you can do it whilst doing other things, and I'm trying to
Yeah,
put film
yeah,
on,
yeah, yeah,
stretch stuff.
yeah.
But it can be quite like not sore, but kind of uncomfortable, which is, I guess, the whole it's supposed
The
to
whole
be.
point of it, yeah.
How did you like? I know this is obviously part of your. I guess this
Mm.
is part of your training. How did you get over those kind of first few humps?
Stretching. I feel like for me, I find stretching quite relaxing. Like one
Oh,
thing you see like a lot of people do wrong is like the best way to optimize your stretching is like use a foam roller first
right,
because what that will do is like it will release the tension in your muscles and like when you go to stretch you'll be able to do a deeper stretch
right.
and avoid doing deep stretching before you train. Especially if you're doing weight training, just because like you'll take the power out of your muscles. Whereas I just do if you can do like if you're doing any kind of weight training do like 10 or 15 minutes foam rolling first because it'll help improve your range of motion without like losing the actual power output. But yeah, for me, like I'd have a foam roller and then I have like a schlitter, just to get into like places I can't usually get. But I don't know, maybe I'm a bit of a masochist, but I really enjoy the sensation of like foam rolling and stretching. I don't, it's just I know it is sore, but I feel like for me, like I'd like to put on my headphones.
Yeah,
Not even like listen to podcast. I kind of more listen to like music that wouldn't have vocals on it. It's just kind of
right.
more just like might just be kind of like classical music or meditative music, and just kind of just get in the zone with it, and just like kind of more just like have the whole body and mind kind of connection.
Mm.
And I think that was just because like having like dyspraxia, I was just trying to like more like understand how my body should actually work, instead of it just kind of just like moving, just like know how things should feel.
Yeah,
And I think that again, I feel like if you really just like get in a meditative state about it, I feel like it can actually make a big difference with it.
excellent. Killian, you've been a brilliant guest, very
Yeah,
open and honest.
thank
Thank
you,
you so much for that.
thank you for
Um,
having me.
of course, listen, if you don't mind hanging on for 1 minute,
Hmm.
it's a tradition that I close it out and take a quick photo, and then
Yeah,
let you get off. Is that all
absolutely.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
Thanks a million, man. So also thank you very much to John for doing all the tech work that he can do and I can't. Thanks to the same people I thank all the time because my mom and dad, granddad, Ger and Calvin for the music and the graphics. Subscribe to our YouTube channel if you would. We're on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Follow you. Well, sorry, Killian, what's your
Yeah.
Twitter handle?
I
Or
don't
sorry,
have. I don't actually have
Instagram.
Twitter.
Apologies.
It's CG__ Strongman.
Right. Get on that. If you're going to follow us, go for it. We're on Twitter as well. Sorry. Spotify, Apple, Anchor, Google Podcasts, etc. As always, thank you very much to everyone for tuning in once more. Killian, once again, thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And everybody else, we'll see you next week.